Good afternoon. Aloha from Florida. About to jump in the ocean again and enjoy the electrical current. So, this is an extremely dynamic system. I had a little conversation with a glober who is having a hard time accepting observable objective reality, the facts of flat Earth, versus his pseudoscientific imaginary worldview known as the globe. The globe is a scientific absurdity. So his point was, there's a container here and the pressure is the same on the bottom, but it's not the same on the top, and there's a pressure gradient, and how do you have that? And I asked him, I said, is there a heat source and a cooling source inside of your container moving around? No. So, well, there is inside the Earth's container. Whatever the dome, the rakia, the firmament is, whatever that is up there, inside of this is an extremely dynamic system of heat coming from the sun and coolness coming from the moon, possibly heat coming from the Earth itself. We don't know or understand all of it except to say this: it is an extremely dynamic system where everything is affecting everything. And we have gas pressure. We are breathing pressurized air right now. You cannot have that without a physical barrier next to a vacuum of space. There has to be a dome, a rakia, a firmament, as scripture refers to it. Even, I forget the website, Science Today or Science something, scientists discover there's an impenetrable barrier at 11,500 kilometers. Even the pseudoscientists are saying there's an impenetrable barrier at some distance? They're right. There is an impenetrable barrier at some distance. How far it is, I don't know. Is the sun and moon moving through the sky in your world? It is in my world. The Earth isn't moving, it's not rotating, it's not revolving, it's not tilting, it's not wobbling. The Earth is flat. That's observable objective reality. And the Earth is stationary. That is observable objective reality. We live inside of an intelligently designed, enclosed, electrical, magnetic, topographical, stationary plane that we commonly call flat Earth. Welcome to the truth. Have a great day. Good afternoon. Aloha from Florida. Let's debunk the globe again in 60 seconds with time lapses. If you will go watch time-lapse photography or video of the sun and the moon for rising and setting, you will see clearly that they are both moving across the surface of our flat and stationary Earth. That is easily observable and repeatable for anyone who is intellectually honest. Then check out time-lapse photography and video of airplane trips, especially the ones that are hours long, reduced down to minutes, where the camera is pointing out the window, and see that the airplane is literally flying through the air over a plane. And then check out time-lapse photography of the night sky, known as the star trails. They're beautiful to watch. And all of these are a lot of fun to go spend some time looking at and confirming flat Earth. But these time-lapse star trails show one motion in absolute perfect unison. And sometimes an airplane will fly through the time-lapse sky of the star trails, and the airplane trail will always be perfectly straight and level because it is flying through the air over a plane. So spend some time with time-lapse photography, time-lapse video, and you'll just have some fun seeing the truth of our flat and stationary Earth. Have a great day. God bless. Good morning. Aloha from Florida. Just real quick, a few things about our geocentric cosmology versus the heliocentric hypothesis, aka the solar system. Geocentric cosmology is the only observable objective reality. The heliocentric hypothesis is nothing more than a subjective belief system based on false assumptions. There is no solar system. There is only an Earth system. The sun and moon are just about the same size and altitude, and they, as well as the planets and the fixed constellations, are moving around the electromagnetic shaft from the North Pole on the ground to the North Star in the sky. That is observable objective reality. You can believe whatever you want. You can believe the sun is huge and far away and everything's going around with it because of some magical juice called gravity. Or you can know that everything in this realm is ruled by electricity and magnetism. Yes, electromagnetism rules everything in this realm. And the motions of the luminaries have been well known, well documented for literally thousands of years. And you don't have to trust me about this. You can watch the sun and moon move through our sky. You can see the Earth is flat. You can feel it's stationary. You can confirm geocentric cosmology for yourself by watching The sun and moon and planets and the stars moving in perfect clockwork cycles around that electromagnetic shaft over the surface of our flat and stationary Earth. So again, flat Earth, geocentric cosmology, is the only observable objective reality. The heliocentric hypothesis, the solar system, is nothing more than a subjective belief system based on government scriptures that people were indoctrinated with since the second grade. There is no solar system. The sun is not the center of anything. Nothing is going around the sun. Everything, the luminaries, all of the luminaries in the sky are moving around the electromagnetic shaft over our flat and stationary Earth. Here's another one for you. Our sun is not a star, and stars are not suns. The sun is just one of the luminaries, the primary luminary in this Earth system. Again, we don't have a solar system. We have an Earth system. Research biblical cosmology. Research geocentric cosmology. Research the perspective from the Hindus out of the Vedic cosmology. Research the Islamic perspective. It's not just a biblical thing. The Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, all ancient scriptures give a much more accurate description of the reality that we live in versus the lies of the globe, the lies of the heliocentric hypothesis. So again, research geocentric cosmology and learn the truth that the Earth is flat and stationary, and we don't have a solar system. We have an Earth system. Have a great day. God bless. Good evening. Aloha from Florida. I often talk about Occam's razor. Most people don't know what that is. For those of you who don't, it is a tool that is used in philosophy and science that says the simplest definition or the simplest answer tends to be the one that is true or correct. So let's apply that to cosmology. Let's apply that to the study of Earth and the luminaries. If I ask you, does it look to you like the sun and moon move through our sky? If you're an intellectually honest person, you'll say, yes, it appears to me that the sun and moon are moving through our sky. And then if you apply Occam's razor and say, why does it appear that the sun and moon are moving through our sky? The simplest answer is because they are moving through our sky. The more complicated belief, the more complicated answer is, oh, you're not seeing what you're seeing. You're actually rotating and revolving and tilting and wobbling and spiral vortexing. You're not really seeing the sun move through the sky. Or you can trust your own eyes and your own senses and know the Earth is flat and stationary. If I say, why does the horizon always look perfectly flat, level, and horizontal? Occam's razor says because it is flat, level, and horizontal, always, regardless of scale, regardless of altitude. If I were to ask you, do you experience the Earth as flat and stationary? If you're an intellectually honest person, you have to answer and say, yes, I experience the Earth as flat and stationary. And then apply Occam's razor to that. Why does everyone experience the Earth as flat and stationary? And the simplest answer is because the Earth is flat and stationary. Occam's razor slices the government scriptures for the blue ball theory to pieces. This is not difficult. If you want to believe the Earth is a ball, you have to believe all kinds of complicated math magic and chalkboard calculations, to try to confirm a theory which has been called the greatest failure in the history of physics, known as the vacuum catastrophe or the cosmological constant problem, which is the same thing, where the observation and the theory is off by 10 to the power of 120. And one of the theoretical physicists who still believes in the theory, even though they say it's terrible, he said, if we're off by a factor of 1 or 2 or by a factor of 10, we say that's terrible and we throw out the theory. But did they throw out the complicated theory? No. They invoked dark energy and dark matter to make up 96% of their theory, and they will admit that nobody knows what dark matter and dark energy is. So what's more simple? To say the Earth appears flat and stationary because it is, or to say we had the biggest failure in the history of physics and our observation and our theory is off by 10 to the power of 120, so we need to create dark matter and dark energy, which no one has ever proven, so we can do math magic and chalkboard calculations to try to get closer to our theory. And then they have to try to solve the three-body problem, which they've never been able to do and they never will be able to do, where they cannot get more than two bodies of mass rotating and revolving around each other until the system collapses on itself and destroys itself. And they claim that there's like 200 bodies up there rotating and revolving around perfectly like clockwork. The simplest answer tends to be the one that is true. Earth is flat and stationary. Occam's razor confirms flat Earth. Have a great day. God bless. Good afternoon. Aloha from Florida. Just enjoying the waves for Hurricane Aaron. And it was extremely strong, very powerful out there right now. So one of the questions that we get is, well, how do hurricanes work? They spin opposite in the north and the south because the Earth is rotating. No, that's not why they spin opposite north and south. They spin opposite to the north than they do in the south because of the path of the sun and the moon, which both spend most of their time over the equator. So north of the equator, they spin one way. South of the equator, they spin another way because of the path of the sun and the moon going around our magnetic center, over our flat and stationary Earth, from the Tropic of Cancer, over the equator to the Tropic of Capricorn, and back. You're welcome. So, globe debunked again. Here's the deal, and I'm going to make a whole video about this. We can explain it to you who believe in the globe, but we can't understand it for you. Just start wrestling with some of these thoughts and ideas. Just think about it, and it will start making more sense. Have a great day. God bless. Good morning. Aloha from Florida. So let's give two examples from flat earthers and two examples from globers, and you tell me which is stronger. One comes from a silly little meme that's been floating around the internet for years now, of the globers using a basketball indoors and pointing a camera at it so you only see a small section of the basketball and you don't see the roundness of the basketball, and say, look, here's proof that the Earth is flat. Flat earthers only see a small section of the Earth, and we only see a small section of this basketball, but the basketball is round, so therefore the Earth is round. Okay, meanwhile, that's one example from the globers. One example from flat earthers is outdoor long-distance observations with high-powered lasers and high-powered zooms over large bodies of water, proving there is no curvature. Yes, the radius of the Earth has been falsified thousands of times. There is no R value. Another one that globers claim is sticks and shadows. Eratosthenes proved the Earth was a globe thousands of years ago. Okay, you take your example of sticks and shadows. What will flat earthers take? Let me think. How about the Antikythera mechanism? With dozens of intricate gears that are perfectly replicating the sky over the surface of our flat and stationary Earth around our magnetic center. So go ahead, globers, you have your evidence, your claims that the Earth is a globe with a basketball indoors and a camera, and a cool story of sticks and shadows. Flat earthers will take outdoor long distance observations with high-powered lasers and high-powered zoom cameras, and we will take the Antikythera mechanism, which is an extremely precise historical artifact that perfectly replicates the night sky over us. Observable objective reality is flat and stationary. That's the fact. The globe, the heliocentric hypothesis, is nothing more than a subjective belief system. It is pseudoscience. Have a great day. God bless. Good evening, aloha from Florida. How's your vision? You want to test it out? Earth is flat. Research it. Thank me later. All right, so real quick, 60 seconds or less, hopefully. Convergence, vanishing points, angular resolution, and atmospheric conditions. That explains everything we see far in the distance, like those condos right there. You can't see them at this angle. 30 miles away, condos right there in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. Why can't I see the base? Because of the effects of perspective and the effects of the atmosphere. You can point a camera towards the horizon, put it on a time lapse, and the horizon will move throughout the day according to the temperature. Globers claim that what you see in the distance, when you can't see the bottom of something, that is the effects of curvature. No, it's not. If it was, you would be able to prove 66.6 feet of curvature over 10 miles, and then scale that up and show me 6,666 feet of curvature over 100 miles on the x-axis between known mountain peaks or between known islands. You can't do it. There is no curvature. When something is obscured at the base, it is the effects of the atmosphere and the effects of perspective, which includes convergence, vanishing points, and angular resolution. You're welcome. Have a great day. God bless. Good morning. Aloha from Florida. So if you believe the Earth is a spinning wet rock in outer space, you might be an indoctrinated individual incapable of independent thought. If you believe that NASA put men on the moon 6 times in 3 years but hasn't been back in 50 years, you might be an indoctrinated individual incapable of independent thought. If you believe the sun is 93 million miles away and huge, and the little moon is much smaller and closer to Earth, but it blocks out the sun completely for an eclipse, if you believe that, you might be an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. If you believe the oceans display convexity on their surface, but you've never seen it, you might be an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. If you think airplanes have to dip their nose down to stay at the same altitude going around a magic spinning wet rock in outer space, you might be an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. If you think Einstein was a genius, you might be a dumbass. If you think the government tells you the truth, you might be an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. If you think the news stations, the mainstream media, tells you the truth, you might be an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. If you think there's an ISS with people on it traveling 17,500 miles an hour and allegedly allowing those people to go outside of that craft and do spacewalks while the Earth is not moving beneath it in their footage, you might be a dumbass. If you think there are satellites going around the Earth, but some of them just sit there perfectly over the same spot all the time, while the Earth is allegedly spinning thousands of miles an hour, or 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, you might be an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. If you think Elon Musk is telling you the truth, you might be a dumbass. If you think any of these things I just said are true, congratulations, your brainwashing is complete, and you are an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. The Earth is flat. That's an absolute scientific fact. The natural physics of a large body of water is easily proven. It's observed and measured and repeated by almost anyone, and that one thing alone debunks the entire heliocentric hypothesis. If you think mainstream scientists are actually doing real science and are not bought and paid for by corporations, you might be an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. If you think that cell phone tower right there is just a cell phone tower and not an actual satellite, you might be an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. I mean, come on, look at that thing right there. Look at all that technology all over it. A few more miles, line of sight from tower to tower. That runs everything along with undersea cables. There are no satellites. If you think NASA is the biggest producer and consumer of helium on the planet because they are using real satellites and not satellites on balloons, you might be an indoctrinated individual, incapable of independent thought. So here's the deal, guys. I'm trying to have a little bit of fun with this. But the globe delusion is all based on belief. It's all based on blind faith. If you believe the Earth is a globe, congratulations, you have a massive amount of blind faith. You were told what to believe, you did not question it, you accepted it, and now you believe it's true, but you can't give me or any other flat earther any actual scientific evidence for your beliefs. You have a religion is what you have. Flat Earth, if it's anything, is the ability to question everything. And Flat Earth is ultimately not about Flat Earth. It's about the fact that this system that we live in lies to us about almost everything. So if the truth matters to you, start questioning everything. If the truth doesn't matter to you, then go right on with your delusions. Believe whatever you want to believe. Have a good day. God bless.